Revolutionary greetings, comrades. We are discussing the court case between the ANC and the MK party as South Africa prepares for elections on the 29th of May 2024. The case is before the Electoral Court. Ours is to draw lessons. We are not trying to take sides in this court case, but to draw lessons. The ANC has a relationship with the ZANU-PF. And some comrades always question us to say, but Comrade Mabena, you seem to be moving closer to the ANC, but you are anti-ZANU-PF. The ANC and the ZANU-PF are similar. And we've always said, no, they are not similar, notwithstanding the relationship that they have as the former liberation movements. And we've always noted that the relationship between ZANU-PF and the ANC began after the signing of the Unit Accord of 22nd December 1987. Before then, the ANC was in a relationship with the ZAPU. ZANU-PF had a relationship with the PAC. Now, the lessons that we are drawing from the MK-ANC court case. If this was in Zimbabwe, and the ZANU-PF is unhappy with any of its former leaders to contest against it, as it was the case with the Xavier Kasquer, who failed to contest, ZANU-PF will ensure that what it wants goes through. Xavier Kasquer was seen as a threat in 2023 elections, that he was likely to reduce or to fish, as to use this word, or to harvest from the ZANU-PF support base for his party. He had to be stopped from contesting. It is also a fact that we should not run away from, that former President Jacob Zuma presents an electoral challenge to the ANC as it goes to the South Africa goes to the elections on the 29th of May, and that Jacob Zuma is likely to harvest votes from the ANC and of course from other parties like the EFF. So if a MK party is to contest the elections, it is going to present serious challenges to the ANC. You now have EFF, which was made up of the entire Youth League of the ANC when Comrade Malema was president of the ANC Youth League. And then now you have MK party led by the former president. And as ANC faces this biggest challenge on the electoral front, if the ANC was similar to ZANU-PF, the ANC was going to ensure that MK party was not going to contest. They were going to force the courts to rule in their favor. Listening to the Secretary General of the ANC after the court case yesterday, Comrade Fikile Mbalula says, as the ANC, they will accept the outcome of the court, even if the court will rule against the ANC. The ANC will contest MK party, in particular former President Zuma, in communities. The ANC is not using language which would be deemed to be inciting violence. On one hand, you have the leader of the MK youth who threatens violence and says, if the MK party is not on the ballot, there will be no election in South Africa on the 29th of May. In 2000, in the build-up to the Zimbabwean elections, at the Rofaro Stadium, Morgan Tsvangirai, the late Morgan Tsvangirai, the then leader of the MDC, said something like, said that if Mugabe at the time was not going to leave office, was going to be removed violently, and the ZANU-PF had to deal with Morgan Tsvangirai for those utterances. The media keep on asking the ANC to say, but the leader of the MK party says there will be no election if the MK party is not on the ballot paper. And the ANC is clear that it will not use violence. It is the duty of state institutions to ensure that elections happens in a free environment without any intimidation. But if it was Zimbabwe, I assure you, the leader of the MK party would be behind the bars for making those statements. So that's the first difference between ANC and ZANU-PF in dealing with the political competitors, particularly those that are former or are its senior leaders. President Zuma says he is a member of the ANC. And speaking of President Zuma, if it was ZANU-PF, if it was in Zimbabwe, ZANU-PF was going to cut off his pension. He's a former president. He enjoys his pension as a former head of state. ZANU-PF was going to ground him, was going to cut off that, withdraw state security around him. State vehicles were going to be withdrawn. But the ANC does not behave in the manner in which ZANU-PF is behaving. The courts in Zimbabwe, as demonstrated by Chief Justice Malaba in 2018, will never make a pronouncement which goes against what ZANU-PF wants. The only time that ZANU-PF lost their court case was in 2013. You remember that one gentleman, was it Jealous Mawaire, who went to court when everyone, including SADC, was advising that the elections should be postponed to allow the implementation of the electoral reforms. And ZANU-PF seemed to be in agreement with that. Then, boom, one Jealous Mawaire went to court and said, no, want elections now. And Mugabe said, well, we accept the outcome of the courts. That was the only time. So it lost that. So in Zimbabwe, a magistrate or a judge will not rule against the ruling party, ZANU-PF. The last point in this video that we are raising, linked to the judiciary, is that the ZANU-PF, in fact, Zimbabwe is a deep military state, whereas South Africa is different. It is the military that decides what happens. I'm sure we've discussed the succession question inside the ZANU-PF, how the military has played a key role. For instance, it was the military in 1974 that removed Ndabaningistole, the late Reverend Ndabaningistole, and installed Robert Mugabe as the leader of ZANU in 1974. It was the military that removed former President Robert Gabriel Mugabe in 2017 and installed the current president, Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. the military has always played or decided on who leads ZANU-PF. In South Africa, it is different. So if it was in Zimbabwe and the military, through the military intelligence, sees MK party as an electoral threat, imagine if some in ZANU-PF will come up with a Zanda party, for instance. Zanda party. And the military is not involved. That party will not contest elections. It can only contest if the military has had enough of ZANU-PF and says, no, ZANU-PF, you are no longer our puppet. We now establish ourselves under the banner of Zanda party. Yes, they need to contest, because Zimbabwe is a deep military, deep state which is militaristic in character. Unlike South Africa, which is said to be a constitutional democracy.